What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Sheehan Show with me, Sean Sheehan, here on Sherdog.com. And I am back today with your top 5 bets for the weekend in the world of mixed martial arts. No UFC this weekend, but we have a very good PFL card this Friday night. I have 4 bets from that card, and I also have 1 bet from the Oktagon card, which I'm going to start off with here today. So yeah, it's interesting. I have been obviously following along with the PFL, doing all the previews and reviews for that, and it's been a very interesting season. And I think even though last week for me the bets didn't go great, I think there has been some opportunity to win some bets, but also a good opportunity to lose some bets because of the unknown, I suppose. It's been interesting because we have, and I've mentioned this a couple of times in a couple of different podcasts, so apologies if you're hearing it again, but there's a lot of different opponents from obviously Bellator and PFL who have no common opponents, and it's hard enough to gauge who's going to beat who. But if you're good at that, and if you're, a real eye for talent, which it looks like last week I wasn't, to be fair, you can make some money off of this. So I think it's very interesting, and we'll have a look at that as we go along here today. I believe, like, the heavyweights, especially obviously the heavyweights are gone now, but I think it's very interesting to see the level of heavyweights, because look at Moldavsky, right? He had only 1 knockout in his career before, and he goes in and gets a very quick first round knockout, and maybe the same level hasn't been there. And for certain PFL fighters, maybe they're a good level, but maybe they haven't fought the level of someone like Moldavsky. And when he goes in there, he can kind of show that. And if you recognize that coming in, I did have Moldavsky, to be fair, but if you recognize that coming in, as I said, there is money to be made. So, a lot of people might be thinking, okay, there's no UFC this weekend, what are we going to bet on? PFL might be the way to go. No, I'll give you 4 bets, but please have a look yourself and make your own mind up, and please bet responsibly. Let's have a look back at last weekend before we look at this weekend. And we obviously we had 300 last week. We have PFL 2, which, do you know what? I don't think many people have acknowledged this. Someone actually asked me in my Q&A I did the other day. I was like, without UFC 300, would we all be talking about this PFL 2 card? And we would. It was brilliant. It was like one of the cards of the year. Really, it was. I don't know, maybe obviously it got massively overshadowed, but it was a great card as well. My 2 bets from that did not hit, unfortunately. I had Jacob and Dye, who, not a great performance from him, but Yashimordov did unbelievably well, and Patrick Fahea almost got the finish in that one, but didn't end up in the end. I had a great night in the UFC. I gave 5 straight up bets, and 4 of them hit. Almost 5 hit, but 4 of them hit. I'll take that. Bobby Green -165, which was for the, he won, in my opinion, 30-25. That's a pretty good price for that sort of win. Alex Pereira, I couldn't believe that price, -125. And I really like Jamal Hill, but he was always going to win that fight. Harrison by submission +290. Pretty good bet there, so I gave you that one as well. And I gave you Yuri Prochazka to win a +105, so they were pretty good. The one I didn't get right was Bo Nickel to win by knockout, and that was +150. But we talked about the submission as well, so I think we were pretty well set on that. And the 2 flyers didn't hit. Zhang Weili by submission, which really could happen about 5 times throughout that, and it kind of did happen, and Oliveira by knockout, which also obviously didn't happen. But like those UFC bets, I feel like, of those 7 bets, I didn't really put you wrong too much, even though only 4 of them won, but they weren't the worst tips ever. So overall, we're 24 out of 53. Improved a little bit in terms of percentage, but it's still not amazing, and only hit 2 flyers this year, which is not great. So as good a year as we had last year, we're having, I would say, a bad year this year. Now, it could be a lot worse, but not great. But look, we're not to the halfway point of the year yet. We're not even 5 months into the year yet. We could turn it around, and hopefully the start of that is this week. So let's get straight into it all together here. Right, bet number 1. I am going for a bet from Oktagon, as I told you, and then I'll give you my PFL bets. So the first bet I'm going from Oktagon here, as I messed that up and it didn't work. I guess we won't be using that today. Is Will Fleury at -200 against Daniel Skjor, who is at plus 150, but I'm going for Will Fleury at the minus 200 price. And I'll tell you why we're going for Will Fleury at minus 200. I think it's a very bad style matchup for Score. I watched a couple of his fights, and he's actually a very good fighter. So I can see why it's closer. I think this sort of stylistic matchup should be probably further apart, but I think he's so good at what he does. I understand why it's so close, but I'll tell you why I think Will Fleury will beat him in a second. But Score is like this really big, tall, Muay Thai fighter, you could call it, and a lot of people try to take him down, and a lot of time he ends up on top, and he's very good on top and very dangerous and hits very hard as well. Now, for that sort of style to kind of work in mixed martial arts for a guy that tall is very difficult, because when you're fighting a kind of a close-in game in mixed martial arts, it's going to allow your opponent to tie up with you, whether that's tie up in the middle of the cage or against the cage, or in a takedown maneuver to get you down. Also, when you meet a guy big and tall as well, which Will Fleury is, maybe he isn't as tall, but he's big and tall like him, and he is used to fighting from close or far, which Will Fleury exactly is. It's a problem. So I think Will Fleury's type of game is a real nightmare for Daniel Score. I think if you watch Will Fleury's, I think it was UAE Warriors, if I'm not mistaken. As I said, my Chrome is not working at the moment, so I guess I can go without that. He won that fight. It was the 5 rounds non-stop striking kind of from the outside, winning a fight like that. And he can very much do that. Now, would you advise him to do that for this is 3 rounds, like against Score the whole 3 rounds? I wouldn't, right? But what he also has is that wrestling ability. Very good at grinding lads out. He's some of the issues why maybe he didn't get signed to the UFC first time, where there was a lot of decisions and a lot of grinding victories. But I think sometimes it's better just to get the wins, and sometimes that can be a criticism, but other times it can be it should be the exact opposite. He is an absolute winner and a tough guy. He calls himself the raw bastard, and that's exactly what he is. And I don't put those two things together, and I think it's a very, very rough night for Daniel Score. Now, if Will Fleury goes inside and fights him on the inside and gets into a dirty boxing matchup with him, or fights him, let's say two strides inside of a lint, he'll get knocked out. I'd nearly assure you of that. But he's a very smart fighter. I think he's a lot smarter than that. And if he's all the way out with his jabs and his long leg kicks and his high kicks, or he's all the way in with his wrestling, or just the clinch, just put him against the cage for a while, I think it's a match made for Will Fleury, really. And, with that said, Scared dangerous on the way in. You're going to have to take a few shots on the way in to get there, which Will is, we've seen in the past he can absolutely do. But, we could call it a little bit of bias with my Irish compatriot, but watching those fights, if it was the other way around, I would say it, and I would give the tip the other way around. But they're on, both of them have fights on YouTube, and I don't think it's going to be a classic by any means. I think it's going to be rough and sweaty, and by the time it gets a round and a half in, it could turn very sloppy, and Will Fleury kind of on top, sweating all over him or something like that, and maybe he could get the finish round in, or maybe a late finish. But I think this one is probably going to a decision, and I could see Will Fleury maybe winning either 30-27, 29-28. The first round I think will probably be the closest. I'm looking forward to that fight. I really am. I'm away a few days, so I won't see it come back. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it goes. But yeah, first bet of the week, minus 200 is Will Fleury, and I think that minus 200 price is a good one. I have another kind of bigger minus price, which I don't like giving, but I think the matchups just stacks up too much not to give it. And let's move on. We'll go with that one, because it's Goiti Yamauchi, minus 225 in his fight with Neiman Gracie. And again, I had to give it to you, because this price, it's just minus 225 is a very good price. I think on this fight they fought before. Goiti Yamauchi beat him. It wasn't necessarily that competitive of a fight. I think he's a far better fighter than him. It only happened 2 years ago. You know, Yamauchi is only 31, whereas Gracie, you know, is he's getting on a little bit now. He's 35 years of age, but maybe an older 35, and you know he's only fought once since then. And it's okay. Well, you know, Yamauchi's only fought once as well and lost. You know, and got that bad injury against MVP, and he's coming back. And maybe it was that injury, you know, that knee splitter that was that could be affecting maybe the price here, but I think this price at minus 225 is very favorable if you have maybe into a double or into an accumulator or something like that. The thing is, look, we all know Neiman Gracie. He is probably the best Gracie. You know, he's obviously very good on the ground, but his striking is very good and good. He's a good jab and he can do it all, right? But he's not the best athlete in the world. You wouldn't say he's the best fighter in the world. You know, you look at someone like Goiti Yamauchi, who is a good striker and very good on the ground, 21 submission wins. I think a better athlete. Obviously, when we wait and see how he is with the knee, maybe that could be a big issue. But if it isn't, I think he's a little bit faster. He's probably a little bit stronger. As I said, more athletic. Jiu-jitsu is up to par. Definitely a better striker. I find it very hard to see how Neiman Gracie's going to win this fight. Like a fight like this with someone as clear a favorite to me should probably be minus 600 to 700. And the fact that he's only minus 225 is really good. So yeah, there's not much more to say about it. I broke this fight down, and if you haven't seen my preview, please go and watch that for this card, because I think I think Goiti Yamauchi is as close to a certainty as possible. Again, we'll mention again, and I'm not sure if I mentioned it much on the preview about the knee injury. But, you know, knee injury. If you're one of those people who think, oh, you can't come back. I know a lot of people last week were picking Alex Pereira a lot based on the injury and the quickness, I suppose, that Jamal Hill was coming back. And if you're one of those people, maybe avoid this. But in that fight, I just thought Alex Pereira was a way better fighter and the injury wouldn't help. In this fight, I don't know, will the injury help enough? You know, so yeah, Yamauchi minus 225. Love that bet here, and definitely going for that in this one. Right, next bet, also from the PFL, as I move my things around, is Kamaka III at plus 130 against Bubba Jenkins. Now, here is another one of these fights that is PFL versus Bellator. Very much hard to gauge the levels based on who they fought over the last few years. Like, let's look at Bubba Jenkins, Pinedo, Sumbo Jo, Chris Wade, Brendan Loughnane, Raiji Kudo, Exon, Bochnik, Wade, Moffat, Palmer, right? We look at Kai Kamaka, Corrales, Aldi Edwards, Kevin Baum, Justin Gonzalez, John DeZeus, Danny Chavez, TJ Brown, Jonathan Pierce, Tony Kelly, etc. None of the same opponents, right? Very few even of like who have fought each other or, you know, have been around the same, the same scene. So it's maybe a little bit harder to gauge. And here's the two things I would say about this matchup and why I'm picking Kai Kamaka. His last 3 fights, 3 wins in a row, right? Split decision with Justin Gonzalez before that, and the fight before that is just Jonathan DeJesus, who did he fight recently? He fought someone, was it in Cage Warriors recently? Anyway, I watched a lot of his fights recently, and Jonathan DeJesus is a very good fighter, and he beat him. Kai Kamaka could have won his last 5 fights in a row. It's a very close split decision, you know? He really could have won all of them, and he's won 4 out of the last 5. I feel like he is an improving fighter. I think I called him last year the most improved fighter in Bellator last year. So he's really, really, really on the way up. At 29 years of age, this is his prime. Bubba Jenkins, on the other side of it, he has lost 2 of his last 4. to Pineda and Loughnane. You know, good fighters in there. He's looked good in the middle of that, right? That Wade win, especially the Sung Bin-Jo fight, looked very good getting the finish there. But he's 36 years of age now. This could very well be his last PFL opportunity, considering all the people that have come over with the merger and all of that. It's a massive fight for him now. So that's the kind of the X's and O's, the stats of the recent fights. Okay, to look at the actual fighters themselves, I think. And look, I've come on this podcast in the last 3 years and probably broken down Bubba Jenkins' game more than any other fighter in the world. He's fought so many. Maybe Impa Kasangana is the only one other than him. We know what he is. He's a good wrestler. He can hit hard. I think if you wrestle him, and are a better wrestler than him, he has big issues. Or if you're a better striker and control the striking with him, he's issues as well. But if he can control you, whether it's with the striking or the wrestling, he's very, very, very good. And he also is willing to throw additional strikes because of his in fights where he is happy that he isn't going to get wrestled. So I think this could be one of those fights, right? But is it going to be enough? Right, so Kai Kamaka, the other side of him. Very good all-rounder, really good striker in terms of, maybe not the biggest knockout artist in the world, but a very good technical striker, lovely jab. He's one of those guys as well that you see it. He's in the gym all the time. He's traveling around with his, he's obviously with Extreme Couture now, but it says 808 Fight Factory here as well on Charlie. But I see him all the time. I saw him here, even over in Ireland here with Eric Nixick. He travels around and helps all those guys and is in sparring and training with all those great guys over in Extreme Couture. And you can see that those improvements have been made, and you can see that he's in with guys as good, if not better, than Bubba Jenkins all the time, training and preparing. And I feel like he is, and you see it with a lot of those guys from Extreme Couture. They're used to fighting close fights, and almost so used to fighting close fights, I think maybe it works against them at times, right? But I think against a guy like Bubba Jenkins, a guy like Kai Kamaka who can control, who can win, how would I put it, portions of fights constantly. So like every time there's an attack from either of them, he's very good at like winning and winning and winning and winning and winning, which is not always the case with some fighters. Some fighters might only win like twice a round and then they win a round, whereas Kai Kamaka is different. And that can lead to close enough fights because sometimes the winning twice around, as we know with the judging criteria, can be more important. But for him, against a guy like Jenkins, who is like Jenkins going to land a big knockdown and hurt him or get him in a big submission and, nearly take him out, I don't think so. No, the submission, of course, is possible. But if Kamaka can control enough on the feet and stay away from that, I think he has a great chance. And I really, really, really like that price of plus 130. So Kai Kamaka, third bet of the week. The fourth bet of the week, and I'm kind of maybe going out on a limb here a little bit. I'm going for Adam Borics at minus 138 in his fight against Enrique Barzola. And anyone who tunes in here knows I have great time for Enrique Barzola. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. But Adam Borics is almost one of those lads who we've forgotten about, really. He's only 30 years of age. He's 18-2. So 20 fights. A lot of experience for a guy who's only 30. 10 finishes in there. Has never been knocked out. Only been submitted once. Injuries down through the years, but he's not a lot of wear and tear on that body. He's training out of Killcliff, which is one of the best gyms in the world as well. He's beaten Jeremy Kennedy, who's the number one contender in Bellator, beaten Mads Burnell, beaten Mike Hamill, Aaron Pico, as we know, Pat Curran. He lost to Darian Caldwell and Patricio along the way. Hasn't fought since that Patricio fight in 2022. But this guy, I remember watching that fight with Mads Burnell and thinking, this guy is one of the best fighters in the world. And he fought 6 months later and we haven't seen him since. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he looks like when he comes back. And if you had given, after that Mads Burnell fight, if you had given him a fight against Barzola and told someone that he's going to be minus 138 in that fight, they would have laughed your head off and probably bet all the money they had on it, you know? Not to say Barzola is not a good fighter, because he is, you know, he's 34, but he's, you know, 29 fights in his career. He's packed a lot into those 34 years of age fighting in, you know, the UFC and in Bellator, and his Bellator run been absolutely fantastic. You know, he's 4-2 in Bellator, but the fun fights he has put on, that win against him, Nikita Mikhailov, is absolutely unbelievable. He's well able to push a pace. It's going to be a close fight again. A guy who's rarely finished, only once in his career in all those 29 fights he's been finished, never been knocked out either. But in his last 6 decisions, he's been to 17 decisions. And I feel like that's where we're going here as well. I think this is going to be Borics by decision. I just think 5'11" versus 5'7". The way Borics fights, he's long, but he can throw those big shots as well. Now, we all know he's flying knees, what they're like. Barzola is going to be trying to come inside, but I think Borics is what is he? What is Borics? He's a very good technical fighter. And I feel he's going to need to be that against Enrique Barzola. But I think he is. And if he's going, he seems to me as well, I might be wrong, I hope I'm not wrong, but he feels to me like one of those lads who wouldn't fight unless he's 100%. And unless he can not just be 100% physically, but 100% technically, and give 100% in the fight. And I think if he is, I think he'll win this fight. As I said, it's going to be close. Barzola's never an easy out, but again, sometimes you have to look at the class horse in the race. And again, no disrespect to Barzola or anything like that, but I think Borics at his best is a really, really, really top fighter. Like, Barzola at his best is a very good fighter who can, you know, cause an upset, but could you see Barzola being like, you know, a UFC top 10 fighter? I don't think so. And, you know, and again, I'm a massive fan of Barzola. Could you see Borics doing that? I think you could if he got on a right run and all of that. I'm banking on that. I'm banking him coming back to somewhere near his best, and I'm banking on him winning this fight at minus 138. Right, those are the top 4 bets. I've kind of rushed through them here. And so we have a bit of an issue here with the flyer of the week. There's almost no prop bets out yet, right? So I've been very limited on my flyer of the week. But at the same time, I kind of like it, right? So here's my flyer of the week. Pedro Carvalho plus 425 to beat Brendan Loughnane. Just straight up, that's his price, plus 425. Now, I was looking at this price yesterday, and I was giving it anyway because there really is not much, because there's only very few kind of big underdogs here. And Pedro Carvalho was, I believe, plus 3. Let me just pull it up here, and let me not give you incorrect information at all. So Pedro Carvalho was plus 384 yesterday. He started out at plus 370, right? So sorry, he was plus 370 yesterday. My mistake. So he's plus 425 now. It looks like that, and I see him plus 350 here in some places, but it feels like that's going further out now. How long will it go out? We will see on that. I think this is, look, if you're to give me a tenner and go, you got even money on both of them, who you're betting on, I would obviously bet on Brendan Loughnane to win this fight. But Pedro Carvalho is a very dangerous fighter early. And we've seen with Brendan Loughnane, you know, that Ryoji Kudo fight, very nearly got caught and very nearly got knocked out early in that one. We saw his last fight against Jesus Pineda, where obviously he was caught and knocked out within 100 seconds in that fight. And Pedro Carvalho, again, I said on the preview show, he mightn't have a load of knockouts on his ledger or anything like that, but he can definitely get in there quick. He's definitely good at landing big shots quick, you know, and maybe getting the fight to the ground and, you know, maybe submitting you or something like that. But he is a quick starter, and he is a guy who is, no matter if he's coming off a loss or 2 losses or a close decision or whatever he's coming off of, he is a guy who, to me, always looks confident. Always looks like he is expecting to win. Always believes that he's going to win. And that's a very, very interesting thing to go in there against a guy like Loughnane. Now, I like Loughnane the way he's long and he's good jab and he's a very powerful right hand. He can wrestle. He's good jiu-jitsu. As I said, I think Loughnane is rightly the favorite here, but I do not believe that price is right. As I said, I'm kind of reaching for a flyer here. I wouldn't normally give that, but I see in some place Loughnane is minus 600. That to me is crazy. Like, this is the sort of fight I see what the price Yamauchi and Gracie is. Minus 285 to plus 230. I think that's the sort of price this should be. To be minus 600 to plus 425, I think that's ridiculous. Now, am I telling you to bet on this? Am I giving you go out and put all your money in? No, absolutely not. But I think it's an interesting one to look at. Do you know one of those things? I know some people do them. They put here's I have 150 and I'm gonna put on like a 5-fight accumulator, all underdogs, and I want to win $1 million or something like that. This is one of the ones you throw into that. This is one of those ones. So that's the fight of the week. I'm looking forward to the fight. I think it's going to be very good. I think the one thing as well, like if you're going for this fight, I think Loughnane will have no problem standing with him and fighting with him, and that's very rare for Pedro Carvalho. Very, very rare. Usually people are looking to take him out down. He has kind of that janky movement and good hands and good. He fights technically well inside of that, and that's not easy for most people. And we saw that was a problem in the Kudo fight, I think, for Loughnane as well, and the Pineda fight even more so. So Loughnane he'd probably be best fared to take him down, but I don't think he's going to. So it does open it up. I'm kind of talking myself into this here, but I think it's going to be a good fight. I would not at all be surprised if that was the round of the weekend, the first round of that. I think the first two rounds of that are going to be very, very, very good. And as I said, that's too wide for me, but I'm looking forward to seeing it. Right. Those are the 5 bets. Let's talk about another couple of bets from elsewhere. There's an Aries card on this weekend as well. I looked through that. There isn't a whole lot of those fighters I know deeply to give you any bets from it. But some of the lines, I know Matthias Linares and Arnold Cuero. I've heard of the two of those guys. Cuero's a good fighter there. He's the underdog at plus 150. That's an interesting one to look at. Samir Sadikov is the underdog as well, plus 163 over Ayub Kuya at minus 225. So if you're a big fan of French MMA and you want even more betting from this weekend, there is an Aries card this weekend. The Oktagon card has even better stuff. I think a very good Oktagon card. Aaron Abbey and Sam Creasy in the main event. My colleague Harry Powell did a great interview with Sam Creasy. If you haven't checked that out, it's on over on our sister site, Severe MMA. So check that out. Sam Creasy, very, very nice guy, very, very good thinker. So is Aaron Abbey, actually coming from really bad disease and everything to come back. Creasy's a big favourite here, minus 333. Plus 225 for Abbey. I'm telling you, I wouldn't be betting a Creasy at that price. But would you bet at Abbey at 225? Is it enough? Maybe. I'd probably just lean Abbey. In the betting terms there, if you're to give me straight up price, I'd probably go for Creasy. But Akon Wanless is coming back here as well. He's a favourite against Sahil Shiraj, who I've watched a bit of recently as well, who's not a bad fighter. But Akon Wanless is all the ability in the world, but sometimes he just doesn't produce it there. So I would back him in that, but I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be shocked if I saw it the other way around. Some really good fights. James Hinnon is the favorite against Jacob Dunn. He's minus 225. Callum Mullen against Dennis Frimpong is a good fight as well. Frimpong is the favorite there. I'd probably just lean him. Mick Stanton is also on this card against Kamil Wojciechowski. Also the favorite, and George Staines, I really like him. He's minus 400. That's the only thing, but he's a very, very good prospect and worth keeping an eye on. Right, let's look at PFL. Brett Johns and Timur Khizriev. This is a very interesting one. Khizriev is the favorite here, and I agree he should be the favorite, but I think it's too big of a price at minus 285. Probably, I think it should be probably closer to minus 200 there. So maybe Brett Johns is worth betting on a plus 230, but I would just about avoid it. I would still go for Khizriev. The sixth bet I had this week, and the one that didn't make the cut, was Don Madge. I think minus 175 is a great price against Brendan Ward. I think Brendan is very good, but I don't think he's at that level anymore, after coming back from such time out. Now, maybe, but I do like Don Madge at that. Otto Rodriguez, another guy I like. I was surprised that Otto Rodriguez was the favorite here. I thought maybe people still wouldn't recognize how good he is. He came in, he beat Brian Moore. I watched a lot of him for that fight, and this guy is very good. But he's fighting a good wrestler, Tyler Diamond. That price, minus 163 best price, I would bet on him at that price. And then we've Babin and Debien and Jean. Jean is a big favorite there. I'm not sure about that one, to be honest. Right. I was thinking on the previous show, what price was Ramazanov going to be against Tripoli? He's a big favorite. Best price, minus 550. He's around the minus 600, and that is right. I think we'd bet him in another matchup maybe down the line. We talked about Borics Barzola. We talked about Jenkins Kamaka. We talked about Yamauchi, Gracie, Braga, Gonzalez. Around the minus 200 for Braga. I think that's just about right. But Justin Gonzalez, as we've seen, he can cause, an upset. Really, really can. He's good underdog to bet on, but I don't think it's big enough for me. Storley Musayev. Storley, the minus 200 for Everett as well. I like him at that price. But again, Storley, sometimes he doesn't always produce it, but I think he will win it against Musayev. We talked about Lochnan and Carvalho a lot. And in the main event, Andrei Koreshkov against Magomed Umalatov. I was pondering who would be the favorite in this, and it's kind of back and forth here. Umalatov just about the favorite. I see a one place here. He's only minus 125 plus 105 for Koreshkov. I think there's the only bet at that price is Umalatov, really. I was kind of torn until I looked at the prices, and then I go, whoa, okay, I think Koreshkov has a good chance, but would I bet him at plus 125? Probably not. So I think that tells me who I think my pick is, and I think it's Umalatov there. So, right, that is it, everybody. Just to recap the 5 bets for the week. Will Fleury minus 200 over an Oktagon. And in my 4 bets from PFL, Yamauchi minus 225, plus 130 for Kamaka III, plus Adam Borics minus 138, and in the Flyer of the week, plus 425 for Pedro Carvalho against Brennan Lochnan. All right, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Sheehan for Sherdog.com. Please bet responsibly, and we'll see you all next time.